pregnant in the back of a police car, in utter disbelief.
Headed for a 4x4-metre cell in the women's section of Darwin's Berrima Jail.
Found guilty of murdering her baby girl. The whole country hated her.
If she's guilty, well, she should stay there for good, eh?
No matter what, you would certainly have heard this.
It wasn't time to go and tell people. I just yelled out, has anyone got a torch? The dingo's got my baby.
You might think you know the Azaria Chamberlain story. I'm sorry, but you don't.
Thought we might brighten your day for you. We've got confirmed fetal blood. She's a religious nut.
All of a sudden I became aware that something was there, and I turned this dingo just intently looking at me. I'll never forget it.
The baby was murdered in the car and he disposed of it that night. I think we've got it.
I want to make sure I've heard that correctly. You called the police and he said to you...
It can't be done. She's been guilty anyhow, and he hung up.
Well, I took a photo of the dingo from inside the van.
Could this be the dingo that took Azaria Chamberlain?
We think it was, yes.
These are not the results you would get.
A forensic disaster.
The verdict in Mrs. Chamberlain's case, guilty.
You pack of bastards.
There is always a rainbow after every storm. There must be a rainbow somewhere on this.
If Australia has a spiritual centre, it's here, Uluru. Dreamtime stories say it was shaped by spirits, the sandstone scarred from their battles. After that came life and rebirth. But the revelations from this sacred ground are not finished yet. In 1980, a yellow Holden Tirana pulled into a dusty campsite here at Uluru. Inside was a family of 5. They'd come to see this magnificent sight. The Chamberlains were quiet, unassuming, a pastor and his wife, 2 young boys and a 9-week-old baby, Azaria. How close was the Chamberlains' tent to your camper van?
20, 30 metres away. There was no other campsite between us.
The night Azaria was taken, Murray Haby and his family were at the same campsite. He is one of the last surviving witnesses. Incredibly, parts of his story remain untold. There's numerous reports of dingoes being in the area around that campsite. Did you see any that night?
Yes, we did. We saw one come in from, it would have been southwest corner of the camping ground. Then it came up to our van and we threw a chop bone out to it.
The dingo is what's called an apex predator. Out here, its only enemy is us. But people found it impossible to believe that a dingo would, or could, take a baby from a tent. There were people who tried to warn us, but nobody listened.
Very recently, a number of children were reputedly attacked by dogs in the camping area.
This is Derek Roff, the very capable park ranger at the time. It wasn't well known, but dingoes had tried to snatch young children before. It's just that nobody wanted to hear it.
Eventually, I determined that we'd really have to get rid of some of the dingoes, that they were becoming more and more of a problem.
The following recording of Derek Roff is from the Northern Territory Police Archives, opened especially to Channel 7. It has never been broadcast before.
I requested permission to get some high-powered rifle bullets, and we were going to shoot a number of dingoes. I didn't get the bullets, and a fortnight later, Azaria disappeared.
On the night Azaria was taken, Murray Haby was in his camper van here. The Chamberlains were next door. The Wests are to the north of them. Greg and Sally Lowe are close behind, near the communal barbecue area. At 8 p.m, Lindy Chamberlain screams.
She came up towards our van, and I could see she was distressed and she was calling out a dingo had taken a baby. So I went out to her and she said, when I went to the tent, Azaria wasn't in the tent and I saw a dingo leaving the tent. I went back and got the torch and took off in the direction she said.
What police didn't know was Murray was an amateur animal tracker, had been for years.
I found this track that was different to all the others. It was heavier and it was obviously a bigger dog or a dog carrying something. I followed that for about 100 metres. It put its load down and you could see the depression in the sand. The important thing was you could see the impression of a knitted garment, and there was a spot beside which looked like a wet spot, as if it was either blood or saliva. I couldn't work out which. I kept following the tracks. Came to a car park. I lost the tracks in the car park.
The only clue has been the discovery of dog tracks. Police say there's only a slender chance of finding Azaria alive.
Did seem an extraordinary story. The whole thing was exotic. It was an exotic location. It was in the middle of Australia. There was Ayers Rock in the background. There was this very beautiful young woman telling what seemed to be an incredible story. So it was a bit like Death on the Nile. It was an exotic location, a beautiful woman and a suspicion about what she'd done.
A dingo had come into a tent at a campground and right under the noses of the parents it snatched a baby. Or did it? Lindy and Michael gave this extraordinary interview the day after it happened.
When we saw the spots of blood in the tent, as we looked, we realised it must have been a very quick event. And this morning when we saw on the blanket the sharp, jagged marks in that very thickly woven blanket, we knew that that was a powerful beast in the sharp teeth.
There wasn't time to go and tell people. I just yelled out, has anyone got a torch? The dingo's got my baby.
There it is. A dingo's got my baby. A mother's anguish. But the public and the police thought something wasn't quite right. Lindy and Michael seemed too composed, too comfortable with the media, and the police watched these interviews carefully.
I yelled at the dog to scare it off, and then it sort of registered on my mind as I was running to the tent because I thought the kitties are in there. When I got in the tent, it was just nothing. And I called to my husband. I couldn't believe the evidence of my own eyes, and I called to Michael that dingo's got the baby.
A cold shiver went up my spine. I thought, this is absolutely ridiculous. And I rushed into the tent and we looked around quickly and couldn't see anything. I thought, my hat. And I rushed out into the blackness and I felt as hopeless as I'd ever felt in my life.
As I've always said, there's no rules to say how people should behave after a traumatic event. Some people laugh, some cry, some go to water, some don't. You can't judge people's personality, judge people from the way they react to situations.
We shouldn't, but we do. And the police are no different. But they were also making crucial mistakes. This remarkable interview is with the police forensic officer who worked the crime scene at Ayers Rock.
Do you have any idea what you were dealing with?
Not at first, no. You know, I wasn't sure about the case, so I had nothing to guide me apart from what I read in the newspapers. And
so you had to rely on the newspapers to carry out your forensic investigation?
Yes.
To write a report?
Yes.
For the Northern Territory Police Force?
Yes.
Myra Fogarty examined the crime scene, collected the all-important evidence. She had been working in forensics for a total of 3 months.
I have a lot of sympathy for the Chamberlains. They were, in effect, accused of murder.
And in a roundabout way, you were in a part responsible for that impression?
In a roundabout way, yeah.
Because of allowing an inexperienced...
For allowing me to do something that I had no idea of how to do.
If that sounds shocking, worse was to come. The Chamberlains were at a campground that was full of witnesses, but their version of events, what they saw, did not fit the police case that was already forming behind the scenes.
Well, They told me they had an agenda when the two policemen came down to interview me at the Box Hill police station before the trial.
What did they tell you exactly?
They said they were only looking for information that would convict Lindy of murder.
They just told you that outright?
Yes, I was flabbergasted. I shook my head and I think, am I hearing this really? They're meant to be finding the truth.
Remember, Murray had seen a hungry dingo the very night Azaria was taken. And how close did he get?
6 feet away, 2 feet, 2 metres.
Murray, did you take any record of the dingo?
Well, I took a photo of the dingo from inside the van.
You got some photos?
Yes. I took 2 photos of the dingo.
Murray, this is an important question. How soon was this before the incident took place?
Half an hour? Yeah, it would have been half an hour, 20 minutes before, yeah.
30 minutes before Azaria was taken. Murray, this dingo that you have a photo of, I know this is a big question, but could this be the dingo that took Azaria Chamberlain?
We think it was, yes.
Was this photo shown in the trial?
It wasn't shown when I gave my evidence. When I spoke to the barrister a few days before I gave evidence, he said, I won't ask you anything about that in court, which I was dumbfounded about. Like a lot of people were a bit naive and I thought that they were trying to find the truth. No, when they were just trying to nail Lindy Chamberlain. Yeah.
Could you please tell me your full name and address?
Alice Lynn Chamberlain, 3 Abel Smith Parade, Sunset, Mount Isa.
Do you actually see anything in the dingo's mouth?
This is Lindy Chamberlain's first police interview. In those days, the police in the Northern Territory recorded secret audio tapes as they worked. Not just interviews, but everything they did, including conversations with each other. This is the first time they have ever been broadcast.
No, I didn't see anything in the dingo's mouth because that was below the level of the light. It sort of had its head down. A thought flashed through my mind that it's no good going to caravans and telling people, can you please come and help? So I just stood there and screamed out if anybody got a torch because the dingo's baby.
There will be some explosive police recordings later. But back in 1980, what the Chamberlains didn't know.
I'm afraid I can't comment on what I'll be doing or where I'll be going.
Is that detectives, led by Superintendent Graham Charlwood, didn't believe their story at all.
I think we'll probably find perhaps not something new, but more to substantiate what we've already got at the moment.
And the media was quick to pick this up.
It's against all dingo habits. They keep well away from even the scent of man.
I think most persons commenced believing that Mrs. Chamberlain was probably guilty of murder. So we faced a headwind of significant proportions.
Andrew Kirkham would later become part of the Chamberlains' defence team. Highly intelligent, precise, and convinced of one thing. Did you believe in the Chamberlains?
We did. We did. You've only got to put yourself in their position. How would you feel if you'd been charged with killing your own child and you were innocent of the charge, but you were being charged with murder and everybody thought you were guilty? It's terribly difficult to imagine.
We're standing by now to cross live to the Alice Springs courthouse.
Like any unusual death, the coroner held an inquest to determine what happened. The findings would stop the nation.
This is an historic television event being beamed to the nation through Channel 7 technical equipment. Mr. Barrett is about to enter the courtroom. 7 National News now takes you to Alice Springs.
I doth find that Azaria Chamberlain, a child then of 9 weeks of age, met her death when attacked by a wild dingo, I further find that neither the parents of the child nor either of their remaining children were in any degree whatsoever responsible for this death.
So, Lindy and Michael, innocent. The coroner was scathing in his criticism of the police and their treatment of the Chamberlains. But although he found a dingo had killed Azaria, he also thought someone was involved in covering it up. His closing remarks gave police the ammunition they needed to continue their investigation.
I find that after her death, the body of Azaria was taken from the dingo and disposed of by a person or persons name unknown.
The first inquest absolved the Chamberlains, but there was a catch at the end. The person or persons unknown.
My own feeling is probably that the police considered that the coroner was wrong, and if he was wrong, that Mrs. Chamberlain got away with murder.
Neil, can you spare me just a moment? Certainly. Just heard the news. Just wondering what had happened. Have we got the car? Oh, we know where it is. I'm just interested, that's all. In fact, cat on a hot tin roof. Yeah.
Determined to make their case stick, the Northern Territory Police doubled down. They seized the Chamberlains' family car, this very car, and they sent it for forensic analysis. And then they searched far and wide for experts who would help them crack their case. Azaria's body was never found, but her clothing was. Photos of Azaria's bloody and torn jumpsuit were sent to a Professor Cameron in London. His expert opinion, the tears in the fabric were caused by scissors, not dingo teeth.
Lindy and Michael Chamberlain's yellow Tirana was flown to a police maintenance compound in Alice Springs yesterday.
But his key finding of what happened in the passenger seat of the family car was horrifying.
Signs consistent with the baby having been decapitated.
What a thing to suggest from photographs of a jumpsuit that a mother had cut her own baby's throat. What a thing to suggest.
Yes, it's a dreadful thing to suggest. He let his expertise run ahead of his competence.
Google wasn't around in 1980, but a few phone calls would have revealed Professor Cameron had a checkered history. Multiple cases of innocent men sent to prison on the strength of his testimony. But back then, the police didn't bother to check, and his findings caused a media firestorm.
We've got besieged by Channel 7 helicopter just landed. Channel 7 helicopter just landed.
It's all over the papers down there, though.
Oh, mate, on the news, a lot, on TV last night.
God, fucking you dead.
We found this interview on a camera tape in the Channel 7 vault. It's difficult to watch.
I've got to ask you this. I have, from a police source, been told that there is no way a dingo could have taken your child. The forensic tests show that. What's your reaction to that?
No comment.
Is there some other story? Could an Aboriginal lady have your child?
No.
It was definitely a dingo.
We stand by our story.
Where the clothing was found and the way it was arranged on the ground, it couldn't have been a dog.
But we know nothing of this.
What are the police on the case?
So directly after this interview, I'm going to ring the police. I want to know.
Well, I can't divulge my source.
Well, I'm going to ring them very shortly because...
Ring them now if you like.
I'll ring them now if you don't mind.
All right, fine.
You won't tell me?
No. I can't do that, Michael.
But there were a few journalists who believed the Chamberlains were innocent. Malcolm Brown was one, this bloke was another.
Good evening, I'm Kevin Hitchcock. I've been following the Azaria Chamberlain case for 3.5 years.
He went on to do a documentary claiming the Chamberlains were innocent. That would see him heavily criticised, then much later win multiple awards. G'day, Dad.
G'day, mate.
You ready for this?
Yeah, I think so.
My father broke his neck when I was 14, but his mind is as sharp as ever. So 1980, do you remember where you were working?
Yes, I was a senior reporter at Channel 10 News in Sydney. And at home, I had a rather precocious 4-year-old son.
Mum told me I was very well behaved.
I think she may have told a fib. Yeah.
You spent a lot of time with the Chamberlains. What was your initial impression? Guilty or not guilty?
Not guilty. Just the behaviour of them, the way they spoke, was like a conviction and punishment in the public square in medieval times. She was accused of murdering her baby daughter and they didn't know how she got rid of the body, so they said he must have helped. So he was an accessory.
Police did have a theory. It was formed early in the investigation, spoken about quietly between each other, and picked up on the hidden tape recorders.
We've been getting up a few hypotheses up here. One, that the baby was murdered in the car and he disposed of it that night. What we were thinking, that if that was the case, that he wouldn't move the baby, he'd only take the clothes. That's right. And he'd leave the baby in the first place where he buried it.
That's horrific. They're searching for a murderer and they're looking for evidence that will support their theory.
How does that make you feel listening to those tapes today?
It's appalling. Yeah, very upsetting.
And police were about to get their smoking gun. Remember the family hatchback? Well, a forensic officer by the name of Joy Cool had been testing samples taken from inside the car. Her results would shock Australia.
Hello. Thought we might brighten your day for you. Yes? We've got confirmed fetal blood on a coin which is on a blood-stained area underneath the seat. She has tested the coin and come up with fetal confirmed. Confirmed. Either the child was killed across the area of the console or was put there immediately after. We're too early to jump, but I think we've got it without a doubt in my mind.
Here for a while and get the doors up, okay?
Fetal blood is only found in babies. This is bombshell evidence. And it wasn't just a few drops either. 22 separate places tested positive for fetal blood in this car. You see, police were certain that Lindy had committed an unspeakable act. She'd sat here in this passenger seat and murdered Azaria. The blood spraying throughout the car, the floor, the belt buckle, the handle, but most importantly, here, underneath the glove box. The Chamberlains became public enemy number one. The forensic evidence was overwhelming, so a second coroner's inquest was held. This would be very different from the first.
Can you talk to us for a moment, please? Would you like to say anything about having to return here?
Listen for the hostile reaction from people at the airport. Remember, these are innocent people. And inside the coroner's court, this is their 9-week-old daughter being talked about here.
Mrs. Cool said blood was found on a pair of scissors. An extract of that blood proved to be of fetal origin.
The inquest was also told of fetal or baby's blood stains in the Chamberlain's car, said to have been sprayed from a small artery while the heart was still beating.
Is it a danger in a case like this to be so focused on proving what you believe happened?
There's always a danger in that. Always a danger. To me, it's just human nature. It's wonderful to say you should be utterly detached. They thought they were doing their job.
Professor Cameron.
I'm sure they had a sense of rightness in it, but I've lived long enough in the law to know that what is apparently the case frequently isn't.
The findings of the second inquest could not have been more different. Lindy and Michael were arrested and charged.
Lindy and Michael Chamberlain will go on trial.
In a sensational end to the second inquest, Mrs. Chamberlain will be tried for murder, Mr. Chamberlain for assisting his wife to escape punishment.
Incredibly, in the end, the death of a little girl became a joke.
You're all the way in Australia.
A punchline.
Hey, I think I hear a dingo eating your baby.
Yeah, well, I have lost my fiancé, the poor baby.
Maybe the dingo ate your baby.
Tropic thunder.
I'm sorry, a dingo ate your baby.
You know that's a true story. Lady lost a kid.
No, get out.
Lindy Chamberlain would be played by the great Meryl Streep.
Dingo's got the baby.
But how did we get to that? And how did a jury get it so wrong?
God, help me. The dingo's got my baby!
The emotional impact of the trial appears to be having an effect on 7 months pregnant Mrs. Lindy Chamberlain and her pastor husband Michael.
She was determined to have another daughter, and that was the way she was.
So Lindy at the trial, pregnant. How was that viewed?
That went badly for her. Again, she'd done something wrong in the eyes of the public. It was almost as though she was making fun of the judicial system, having another baby while she was on trial for murdering the previous one.
The demeanour of Lindy herself, did that help or hinder her?
Unfortunately, it went against her. I found out later from her that she didn't know what to do. If she was smiling, she'd be taken as someone who wasn't taking things seriously. And if she put on a stern face, she was a sour bitch. So she really struggled with that. And so she just kept the same face on.
The Chamberlains had a public image problem. It shouldn't have mattered, but it did. Lindy and Michael were grieving, but they had accepted their loss too quickly for many.
I know how upset Mrs. Chamberlain was. I saw her often, both before and during the trial, exhibit signs of real upset, and Michael too. They were both traumatised by it, and to have the trial superimposed on them, and the public hostility or scepticism made it just harder for them.
Mr. Barker put directly to Mrs. Chamberlain that she had taken Azaria to the front seat of the family car and cut her daughter's throat. Mr. Barker said a spray of Azaria's blood had gone up under the dashboard and that more blood had flowed down the seat. Mrs. Chamberlain began sobbing uncontrollably and after more questions said, "We're talking about my baby daughter, not some object."
Without a doubt, the evidence from pathologist Joy Cool was devastating. Fetal blood found throughout the Chamberlains' car. Something Lindy and Michael could not explain. The locations that it was found on, towel, scissors, 10-cent coin, door hinge, the carpet, the chamois, the glove box, 22 places in that car, 22 places where they found fetal hemoglobin.
That was the claim, but there was something in the car curdling the reagents.
Back then, Barry Botcher was the key witness for the defence. You saw a problem with them right from the start?
Right from the start. These are not the results you would get if you were testing bloodstains from Azaria Chamberlain.
It was Barry's job to convince the jury the blood tests were wrong. The jury didn't believe him.
I was probably far too technical for the jury. I had the feeling that I had let down the Chamberlains. I really felt that.
The science behind the prosecution case was deeply flawed, but to the jury, it was compelling. A British expert had identified a bloodied handprint on the back of Azaria's jumpsuit. The cuts were made by scissors, not canine teeth, and the stain around the neck was consistent with a throat wound. Add to that, the Chamberlains' car was basically awash with Azaria's blood. But there was crucial evidence the jury never heard, and it came from right here. the earth at Uluru. Local Indigenous tribes have lived with dingoes at Ayers Rock for thousands of years. Aboriginal trackers were there on the night Azaria was taken. But not one of them gave evidence at the trial.
Nipa, is this a dingo track?
Yeah, that's dingo track.
We found this buried in the Channel 7 vault.
Where was the bush where the baby was put down?
Yeah, and even kept out that way. Pick him up again. Run back then. Lindy got him out. He's not guilty. Dingo is guilty. Of course, because I've been same track. Been around in the tent. Lindy's not guilty.
Lindy Chamberlain on trial for murder, Michael as an accessory. But to convince the jury they were guilty, the prosecution would have to outline how she did it and when. The prosecution says Lindy was here at the communal barbecue area along with all the campground witnesses. Now, she leaves here with her son Aidan and she goes to the family tent, which is a short walk away. Now, when she gets to the family tent, Aidan goes inside. She leaves him here. Then she walks to the family car, which, by the way, is only metres away. Now, police say she sits in the passenger side seat and she cuts Azaria's throat, stuffing her body into a camera bag. And this is where it gets really tricky, because police say she then comes back to the tent, only metres away. She somehow cleans herself up. She plants spots of Azaria's blood throughout the tent. Then she leaves here and goes back to the communal barbecue area. All the witnesses are still here and nobody notices anything different about her. And all of this took place in 10 minutes or less. 10 minutes or less. To convict Lindy Chamberlain, the jury would have to not only accept that impossible scenario, but they would also have to dismiss the witness accounts.
First of the 40-odd witnesses expected to be called was Tasmanian woman Mrs. Sally Lowe.
What the people at the barbecue heard next could not have happened because, according to police, Azaria was already dead.
Along the track, I observed her. From head to toe, there was no blood on her at all. And she resumed conversation, and then the baby's cry was heard. Three of us heard the baby's cry.
It was just... I get a bit emotional. It's nearly 40 years since then. It was gut-wrenching. It was like someone put a knife through you.
The witnesses believe this was the moment the dingo came. It was Azaria's last cry.
The cry that you heard, it was really, really horrific.
The campground witnesses destroyed the police case. They knew that, and there was one woman, Sally Lowe, who insisted she heard the baby cry out, and they interrogated her, didn't question her, interrogated her for over 2 hours to try and shake her version of events.
During the trial, the jury's hearing all this evidence. Do you remember thinking anything about the jury in particular?
Well, I would have loved to have been in the jury room during the deliberations.
Yvonne, being a jury member in a case like this, a tremendous responsibility. Do you remember the first day in court?
Oh, absolutely, like it was yesterday. And you're just thinking, what am I doing here? What am I doing here?
You've probably never heard a jury member speak before. I never have. In most states, it's illegal, but in the Northern Territory, it's not.
Well, I think we all had the opinion that she was guilty. Everybody in Darwin thought she was guilty. And I don't know whether it was the press, everything that we read about it, I think everybody just said, she's so guilty. She doesn't even cry, that sort of thing. And I'm embarrassed to say it because I was led along like everybody else.
What was the result from the first round of votes?
The very first was 3 guilty, 3 not guilty, 3 not sure.
The debate would go on for hours, but the discussion would always return to the overwhelming forensic evidence.
And then I think after that it was all guilty. And then your heart starts thumping and you start shaking. And she knew as soon as we walked out the door because nobody looked across at her. Everybody was just holding their breath, I think. And then guilty, and then all hell breaks loose.
At 8:35, 6 hours and 15 minutes after it retired, the jury finally returned to the court. The foreman was asked to rise. He was asked whether their verdict was unanimous. He answered yes. The verdict in Mrs. Chamberlain's case, guilty. For Mr. Chamberlain, guilty. Mrs. Chamberlain was then sentenced to life imprisonment.
Lindy reacted as gasped as though she'd been shot. The judge almost apologetically sentenced Lindy to life in prison with hard labour. The jury was going out of it, and I looked at, called her, "You pack of bastards. You pack of bastards."
It was like a punch in the stomach. I thought it was a great, great miscarriage of justice and would be a blight on Australia in years to come because it was just wrong.
We went down with the Chamberlains to the cells afterwards, and they were, as you would imagine, really, really upset, asking if they were innocent, how could this have happened? I'll remember that for a long time.
Lindy Chamberlain was on her way to serve a life sentence with hard labour.
No body, no murder weapon, no eyewitness, no confession, no motive. So how could the law get it so wrong?
Yeah, very fair question.
My name's Denham, I'm from Channel 7. I'm looking for a man who lives in this area. His name's Hans Brunner.
No one.
Never heard of anyone like that?
No, not at all.
I'm trying to find someone, a guy by the name of Hans Brunner.
Like, is he young or old?
He's old.
I think Winder.
Next one down, okay. Yeah. Down this street here?
Down the court, yes.
All right, let's go check. Hello, Hans. Hans Brunner.
Yes, yes.
Denham from Channel 7.
Oh!
Nice to meet you.
Yes, yes.
Come to talk to you about the Lindy Chamberlain case.
Nearly 40 years.
Scientific examination of that clothing showed an absence of saliva, dingo hairs, pulled threads, or any fragments of plants or seeds.
Animal hairs were found on Azaria's jumpsuit and in the family tent, but an expert for the police identified them as cat hairs. Case closed. Hans Brunner was in Australia back then and just happens to be one of the world's foremost experts on mammal hair. Yes, he wrote the book. And he took a keen interest in this case. So you called police in the first few weeks?
So I rang the police from work, told them that I have experiences with dingoes and things like this, and I would like to come actually and have a look. He said, "Oh, no, that can't be done."
The police officer said that.
He said, the police said, "No, that can't be done. She's done it anyhow," and he hung up the phone.
Hans wasn't the only one who knew something was wrong. Remember Professor Barry Botcher? He was certain the chemical used to determine Azaria's blood was found throughout the family car was faulty. The Chamberlains lived in the mining town of Mount Isa. Barry believed something there was causing the chemical to give a false result.
I was given some copper and zinc ore from Mount Isa, and it gave a positive result as rapidly as blood did. So my wife and I went off to Mount Isa, where the Chamberlains lived, and as we walked to our accommodation, there was dust on the front door. And so I immediately tested that, and it gave a positive result. We then tested streets and the dust on the sides of streets. We tested the keys of the accommodation.
So every one of those locations you tested in town, positive?
Every one.
So that copper oxide dust from the town that they lived in would have been right throughout the car. So almost every location she tested would have come back positive?
Yes. Not only stained areas, but non-stained areas as well.
What is the legal terminology for a mistake like that?
It's a miscarriage of justice.
And what would you call it in layman's terms?
A forensic disaster.
So, if there was no blood in the car, what was the supposed arterial blood spray underneath the glove box? That mystery would be solved by a man called Les Smith.
A friend told me he was photocopying transcript to help save the Chamberlains money, and I said I'd give him a hand. And while I was sitting by the photocopying copier feeding pages through, I read the transcript. I read about this metal bracket that had human blood from an arterial wound.
Bracket from the family Tirana?
Underneath
the glove box?
Yes. Every weekend I bought all of the local papers and I looked for Holden Tiranas that were for sale. I looked up underneath the dashboard of the car and I went to car wreckers and I saw that the bracket in the cars that I examined corresponded very closely with the bracket in the photograph.
The tiny drops matched the pattern on the bracket from the Chamberlain's car. It wasn't blood, it was paint overspray from when the car was built. The copper oxide dust from Mount Isa had then caused it to test positive for blood.
It turned out that this was the evidence that didn't prove guilt. This was the evidence that proved innocence.
About now, an eccentric expert on mammal hair was finally given access to the Chamberlain's evidence vault. He asked to see only one thing, a small bag labelled cat hairs.
So I looked at them. They were absolutely dingo hairs and not cat hairs. Absolutely no cat hairs. Oh, it's obvious. It's like pears and apples. Well, that really upset me because I could have looked at those hairs right from the beginning and she would have never gone to jail.
With all this new evidence, the Chamberlain Innocence Committee was formed.
Plea for justice.
Appeals were lodged in the courts and a controversial documentary went to air on Channel 10.
Good evening, I'm Kevin Hitchcock. It was accepted amongst the Aboriginal people that a dingo had taken the baby.
The system has made a mistake in our case. We are innocent. And I affirm this, and my wife would affirm it most strongly. And so we must fight on.
We had a reaction that I didn't really expect. 50% of the people believed that exonerated them, that it was right, but 50% of the people thought it was all wrong. And that's probably continued to this day.
At this point, from a legal perspective, you'd think it's all over. The cat hair is actually dingo hair, the scissor marks on the jumpsuit are actually canine teeth, the arterial blood spray underneath the glove box is actually paint, and the blood found right throughout the Chamberlain's car, well, it isn't blood at all. But incredibly, the federal court and later the High Court would dismiss the Chamberlain's appeal.
This case is not over yet. Lindy and I are innocent people, and that we will not stop fighting to clear our names and the names of our family.
Lindy Chamberlain, sentenced to life for the murder of her daughter Azaria, is in Berrima Jail, Darwin.
Mrs. Chamberlain has given birth to a daughter. Mother and baby are both well. It was a safe delivery.
Earlier today, the Northern Territory government announced that Mrs. Lindy Chamberlain will not be allowed to keep the baby in jail, as this would not be in the child's best interests.
Baby Kalia had been taken from Lindy at birth, so by now, Michael was doing his best to raise 3 kids. The appeal process exhausted the story out of the headlines and slowly being forgotten. But there was one more twist to come. Had an English hiker by the name of David Brett not gone to climb Uluru, would Lindy Chamberlain still be in jail?
She may. She may.
Lindy had always been clear about what Azaria was wearing the night she was taken. A jumpsuit, booties, and a button-up jumper, also called a matinee jacket.
Scientific examination of that clothing showed an absence of saliva, dingo hairs.
The jumpsuit and booties were recovered near a dingo lair.
The police are also looking for a matinee jacket the baby Azaria was wearing.
The matinee jacket was never found, but the prosecution said the jacket never existed. In court, it was a joke.
There was no evidence of saliva on the jumpsuit, which Mrs. Chamberlain explained by saying it was covered by a matinee jacket.
But the prosecution said the jacket never existed. In court, it was a joke.
Mr. Barker said the dingo which supposedly killed Azaria Chamberlain must have been not only dexterous, but also very tidy. It was able to achieve the killing of the baby, its burial, its subsequent disinterment, and the removal of its clothes, all without leaving any discernible clue that a dingo was responsible.
In 1986, English hiker David Brett fell to his death while climbing Uluru. Back then, John Beasy was the head of the local search and rescue. Hey John, still find the spot even after all these years?
Yeah, mate, I reckon we're pretty well close to it here.
Bring back some memories?
It certainly does, mate, yeah. We were doing a line search. We were walking that way, and we were sort of, you know, 1.5 metres apart, I guess. And we're looking for some terrorists who had climbed the rock and fallen, and all of a sudden came across what I knew was the jacket from Azaria. I knew straight away, before I even leant down to pick it up, I could see it from standing up like this. It was just plain as day that that was the jacket.
Of all the people in the line search that day, only John had been involved in the original search for Azaria 6 years before. Only John would understand the relevance of a tiny piece of cloth half buried in the desert sand.
I bent over, picked it up, and I said, you know what this is? This is the only thing that was missing from Azaria.
Did you know the significance of that find straight away?
Yes, I did. We sort of knew that it was about to hit the fan.
If not for you finding that jacket, Lindy could still be in jail today.
Yes, absolutely. May well be. Serving a life sentence in the Territory back in them days, it was life. Life was life.
Northern Territory police say a baby's white jacket was found about 90 metres from the body of a 31-year-old man.
Almost immediately, Lindy Chamberlain was brought in to identify the jacket, the same jacket police said never existed.
Well, I'm stunned and amazed, but very grateful. Grateful why? Because I think this just goes to show once again that my wife was telling the truth.
Finally, the truth. A terrible miscarriage of justice. Authorities moved at lightning speed.
When it came, the announcement took everyone across the nation completely by surprise. Lindy Chamberlain freed from Darwin's Berrima jail.
She was ushered into a waiting car which then sped through the streets of Darwin towards the city's airport.
The Northern Territory Government has decided to institute an inquiry into the Chamberlain case. It is not my intention that she be taken back into custody, regardless of the outcome of the inquiry.
The fight to clear their names would continue for decades.
Would you like to make any comment at all?
Not at the moment, thank you.
It would take another royal commission, no less than 2 inquests, before they would finally hear the words, "We're sorry."
Please accept my sincere sympathy on the death of your special and loved daughter and sister, Azaria. I'm so sorry for your loss.
But still, their lives would never be the same.
So how do kids treat you about all this?
Awful.
Why?
No, I don't know. There's something against us. All the friends that I don't like tease me about it.
So what do the kids at school say to you about it all?
They say, look, like, your mum killed your baby, and brag on about that.
How do you think Mum handled jail?
I don't want to talk about that one.
Okay, mate, sorry. Okay, we won't talk about that.
The Chamberlains received $1.3 million in compensation, but it didn't matter. Lindy and Michael would separate, then divorce. Lindy would later remarry. Michael would die from leukemia, aged 72.
It wrecked their lives, wrecked their marriage. Marriage had broken up. It affected their children to no end. It affected everything. Had this never happened, they would have been lived on in happy obscurity instead of the wreckage that this case had produced.
Is there still a large element of Australia that still thinks that Lindy Chamberlain is guilty?
Well, it's always been around 50-50, so I think there are still people definitely out there. But hopefully, 40 years after I had an attempt, you'll be able to convince those people. That'd be a nice ending to the story.
It would, but the one person who never had a voice in all this was Azaria. She should be celebrating her 40th birthday this month. So, the last word should be about her.
You never forget. There are little things that, out of the blue, remind you. And you can just see a fleeting glimpse in the side of a face, the movement of an arm, that links what the person that you loved and lost did. And it hits you just there.
What real memories do you have of her?
I've got lots of them. But I think that's one thing I'll keep to me.
Are you absolutely certain that you made no serious mistakes?
No, there were no serious mistakes made at all.
So you're convinced that Lindy Chamberlain was guilty of the charges that you brought up?
Yes.
The Northern Territory authorities, particularly the police, had become so obsessed with their belief of the Chamberlain's guilt that they were unable to accept any material to the contrary. He said that to accept the Crown case, people would have to accept that a normal, caring mother became a homicidal maniac for 5 minutes.
Do you think Professor Botcher is in a position to criticise you?
Well, I don't believe he is. He's not employed in a forensic laboratory of any type. He has no conception of what dealing with an old bloodstain involves.
Mrs. Cool revealed today that she hadn't used the full range of scientific checks during tests on 28 of the items found in the Chamberlain's car.
I was trying to think of something profound to say to her, but all I could say was, I'm sorry.
If there's any one lesson that you have learnt over the 7 years of all this, what is it?
Don't trust the police.
Hello.
Hello, that sounds like Mr. Hitchcock.
Hello, Lindy. It's a nice surprise. How are you?
I'm good. I haven't called you for a while, so it's time I did again.
Yeah.
See how you're behaving yourself.
Well, I haven't been getting in as much trouble as I used to. And how are the kids going?
Mine are doing all right.
I'm doing an interview on this subject, so I'd better go.
What, right now?
Yes.
Oh, well, I shall get off the line in a hurry in that case. Bye.
Okay, bye-bye.